Here I am as a university professor coming into the neighborhood doing research with them. The class will matter. Class will play a role in terms of how I interact with them, in terms of how they interact with me as well. Unless I try to transcend my class status, my class privileges, and to put myself on the ground with them. You can do that, right? You can try to transcend your privileges, or at least keep them in check, so that you can be part of the masses, so to speak. You see? So it doesn't matter what I do, they're gonna perceive me as a university professor with lots of class privileges. I am privileged in many ways. In other words, I'm not. You see, as a university professor, for example, as a black male, I have a lot of privileges. But at the same time, when I'm walking on the street, I'm just a black man. You see? I'm just a black man. They're going to see me as a black man.
Could you dress to fit the part and relieve some of their anxiety?
Well, that's the job that we have as a researcher to do. When you're going to do research, you want to make sure that first and foremost, you build a strong relationship with your participants. That way they can trust you. Mm-hmm. Trust building is very important when you are doing research. So if you don't earn the trust of your participants, how are they going to open themselves up to you? Even when you try as hard as you can to be cool with them, so to speak, they're still going to see you as a university professor. Now, depending on how you interact with them, how you treat with them, they might be willing to open themselves up to you, tell you things that you need to know as a researcher. But it takes time to build trust with your participant. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. You see? But anyway, going back to what I was saying, we cannot afford not to take into account the ways and the degree to which these factors intersect. Sexuality, religion, language, age, like you said earlier. If you're going to do a study with teenagers, they're going to see you as an older white man. Likewise, if I'm with a teenager, they're going to see me as an older black man. Now, depending on how I interact with them, they might be willing to share things with me or not. See, we need to take into account this factor. Age matters when you do research. If you are a younger researcher doing research with older participants, they're going to look at you through that lens. It's inevitable. So the least you can do as a researcher is to make sure that you make them understand, you make them feel that they can trust you. They're not just going to trust you because you're a researcher. You have to create a climate where they feel they can trust you. Now, having the awareness about the way these forms of oppression intersect might enable you to connect with your participants. But if you're absolutely clueless about these factors, how are you going to be able to really earn the trust? How are you going to be able to do that? I agree with you. We cannot generalize about any group, whether it's woman or man, or it doesn't matter. But at the same time, we cannot pretend that these factors, do not influence how we perceive our participants and how they perceive us. It's something that we don't have much control over, because you are not just a woman. You are a woman with many forms of identities, right? And these identities, sometimes they come to surface. We can try as hard to hide them, but they're gonna come out. They're gonna surface anyway. They're gonna come to the surface anyway. You see? I think the key is to admit that you are a woman with enough privileges or not. If you're gonna do any study with a group of women, they need to know where you stand, so that they can trust you. So, while I agree with you, but at the same time, I disagree, because I don't think we can overlook these factors, because they are important.
So we need to be aware of those differences and how they influence people, but we shouldn't make assumptions that they're going to experience it.
No, we should not.
Okay.
We should not make assumptions. Because like I said, you may have two women who have similar status, in society, doesn't mean they are experiencing the similar things or the same thing. I mean, we all come from different walks of life, I cannot assume that Jed and I, because we are males, we must have many things in common. Perhaps we don't. Even though he's a man, I'm a man. See? So we need to understand, we need to respect people's uniqueness. Because people are unique in some ways. We need to respect that. And when you're gonna do research with whichever group, we need to understand you need to understand the group may not be homogeneous. You see? This is the assumption that we make a lot about people. Researchers do the same thing. If you're gonna conduct research with let's say with Native Americans, that's just an example. We cannot assume that because they are Native Americans, they must have same or similar experiences. Perhaps, maybe similar experiences, but it's not necessarily exact same experiences. Because people go through life experiencing things that perhaps others do not experience. Therefore, we need to understand, we need to take into account people's individuality. And that's what we should do as researchers. Right. Any questions?
Just to show like on nationality, if you're doing some research and somebody's from Kenya, you might make an assumption that that person lives in a hut or doesn't have any kind of modern lifestyle there. Those are the kind of things you have to, that I think he's talking about, we have to be careful about. Or if I, as a U.S. American, am in your country and I'm doing research, I have to understand, okay, you've got a nationality difference. I have to get a trust with you before you'll let me, as a foreigner, listen to me and believe in me. I think those are just awareness.
Right.
I think that sometimes we don't have to look at every one of those for our, depends on our focus,
exactly.
Our research. And so it's like, maybe religion is not going to matter in this research, and so we would need to focus on that, but something else would matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I think we can't make assumption because, for example, in our country or in Arab country or Muslim country, it's different. When we look to gender, class, races, than how United States look to these things.
I think that's why I'm having a hard time to understand those differences, why they're just looking at those specific topics.
I think it's to avoid the stereotypes, but consider all those layers, right? Because assumptions means stereotypes, because you already have an image of someone. But I think we need to go with the mind open, so we break these stereotypes. And okay, I think what she said is not to have a view of the individual as isolated, but we cannot generalize, right? But consider all those layers.
Yeah, I think perhaps what you're trying to say, I mean, if I understand you correctly, we shouldn't have preconceived ideas, right? Based on people's gender, race, class, and nationality. So we should look at it as human beings. But human beings are not are shaped by multiple identities. I don't think we need to be stuck in those identities. But what I'm arguing is we need to be aware of them. You see, you're not gonna do a research worrying so much about race, class, gender. But you should be aware of that. If you're gonna do, you're gonna do a study with women of color, I can guarantee you, whether you want it or not, race is gonna come up in the conversation. Gender is gonna come up in the conversation. Sex is gonna come up in the conversation. It's almost inevitable. You see? Same way if you are doing research with kids, what do you think they're gonna talk about? Maybe Justin Bieber? They're gonna talk about hip hop. I mean, not hip hop. The pop culture. You see, these are the things that are gonna come up whether you like it or not, because that's what they live on a daily basis. That's what they experience. That's what they value. So if I were to do research on you, with you. I don't like to use on you, with you. It's really bad saying on you, with you. You are not just a human being. As much as I would like to believe you are just a human being, but the reality is you are not just a human being with, with a blank state. With a blank state, you have identities that shape who you are. Therefore, I need to be aware of that. You see? It could be religion, it could be whatever that is, I need to be aware of it. I'm not gonna prejudge you, I'm not gonna make any preconceived assumptions about who you are. Rather, I need to go there with an open mind, exploring whatever you have to share with me. You see what I'm saying? So that's basically, that's the argument I'm trying to make. We're not saying that we have to be stuck in those identities to a point where, but the argument I'm trying to make is that we need to be aware of this. We have to. I mean, how can you not be aware of, how can you not take into account class, race, gender, language? I mean, they are real. I mean, people are shaped by those identities.
Without research, we can't feel them.
Right. Exactly. You don't make assumptions. No, you don't. Researchers should not make any, if you're going to do research, you should not make any assumptions. You may have some preconceived ideas about the group, but do not, your assumption lead your research. To me, the way I look at research is like an adventure, depending on the kind of research you're doing. And you need to allow yourself to go with the flow. Because it's like a discovery. You don't even know what's going to happen. Well, if you know what's going to happen, so what's the point of doing research anyway? If you know exactly what was going to happen, so what's the point of doing research? Research is about investigating, it's about exploring, it's about discovering things that perhaps you never thought would happen. That's the beauty of research, you see? But in the process of doing so, factors such as class, gender, race, might come up in the conversation. And you cannot avoid them because they are part of the research dynamics. Is that clear, more or less? All right. You were going to say something.
Yeah, well, it's just adding to what you just said. Like, precisely in order not to make assumptions, you need to consider all these issues.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, it's kind of ideal, or I don't know, like to think that we are all created equal. We actually are, like, but this is what makes us unique at the same time. Like, we are equal, but each of us is unique in a sense. So, yeah, it was that. But I was trying to say this since the beginning of the discussion.
Well, you said it anyway. So right now, what I would like you to do is the following: to put into, to sort of play with the idea of intersectionality. By the way, there is a woman who has done a very interesting piece on intersectionality. Oh gosh, her name is Kimberly. Hold on, let me spelling her name. I would want to be this like this. Kimberly Crenshaw. I believe so. Yeah. She wrote a piece called. Can I write it for you? And I may have a copy of it in my office. If not, I will look for it and give it to you. I promise I'll give it to you. Probably not next week, but certainly sometime this semester. She wrote a piece called Mapping the Margins. It's a very good article. And that's the title. The subtitle is Intersectionality, Identity Politics, and something violence against women, something like that. Violence against women. I highly recommend it. Like I said, I will certainly make a copy against women. I will make a copy and give it to you. And then I also want a piece that I would like to share with you, where I look at how race, class, gender, and language intersect. I think that perhaps that might be helpful to you as you are about to do your lead review or your research, okay? So Kimberly Crenshaw, she's the one to talk about the intersectionality, because she believes that all these factors intertwine. You cannot focus on one factor and neglect others. You know, like I said earlier, one person may be shaped by multiple identities that we may not know about. But you will know about that by engaging in dialogue with the person. We cannot just see someone and make assumptions. For example, when you form, perhaps you form your upper class in your country, or lower class. But by looking at you, just that you are a student, you have some kind of social capital, just by being here, to be a student.
I'm coming from working class.
Yeah, exactly. So I couldn't assume, based on how you dress and how you carry yourself, oh, she must be middle class. Perhaps not. You see? But to be here, to be here studying, you have to have some kind of capital, you know, because otherwise you won't be able to do it. How many people would get to leave the country and go study abroad? Not too many people. You don't, even though you were, you perhaps, like you said, you were working class, but you have some kind of capital that enables you to be here. And that needs to be recognized. You know? So that's what I'm talking about. I grew up poor, but I was poor until I came to the United States. Because poverty in some way, in some places in Haiti, was normalized. People have, basic necessities that are more or less met, and they go about in their daily lives, and they're happy, they seem happy. But unless you are able to compare your poverty to other forms of poverty, you might not even know if you were poor. I didn't know I was poor until I came here. I was 20 years old. I'm not close to 20 years old. Close to 20. I was like 18, 19. Yeah. See, it wasn't until then I realized, gee, I was poor. On what basis? Because I was able to compare. Now, people who see me now, they might assume that I'm from a rich family in Haiti.